This is a cool old Bunn brand bundle tying machine, or package tying machine. It came from the old post office across the street, and it's used to automatically tie up a package with string. So just stick it in here. And the amazing thing is it has tied a beautiful little knot. How does it do that? It'll do it all day long. Put this in here. And we've got a whole bunch of perfect little knots in there. There's nothing this won't tie up. For example, at this point, let's go to the close-up and see how this actually does the knot tying.
Here's a map of ancient Egypt. I've inserted two sticks, or obelisks, one up here in Alexandria and one down here in Syene. Now, if at a certain moment each stick casts no shadow at all, that's perfectly easy to understand, provided the Earth is flat. If the shadow at Syene is at a certain length, and the shadow at Alexandria is the same length, that also makes sense on a flat Earth. But how could it be, Eratosthenes asked, that at the same instant there was no shadow at Syene and a very substantial shadow at Alexandria? The only answer was that the surface of the Earth is curved. Not only that, but the greater the curvature, the bigger the difference in the lengths of the shadows. The sun is so far away that its rays are parallel when they reach the Earth. Sticks at different angles to the sun's rays will cast shadows at different lengths. For the observed difference in the shadow lengths, the distance between Alexandria and Syene had to be about 7 degrees along the surface of the Earth. By that I mean, if you imagine these sticks extending all the way down to the center of the Earth. They would there intersect at an angle of about 7 degrees. Well, 7 degrees is something like a 50th of the full circumference of the Earth, 360 degrees. Eratosthenes knew the distance between Alexandria and Syene. He knew it was 800 kilometers. Why? Because he hired a man to pace out the entire distance so that he could perform the calculation I'm talking about. Now, 800 kilometers times 50 is 40,000 kilometers. So that must be the circumference of the Earth. That's how far it is to go once around the Earth. That's the right answer. Eratosthenes' only tools were sticks, eyes, feet, and brains, plus a zest for experiment.
Then, in the strip where the track had been projected, the topsoil would be removed until a solid base was found. Then on this base, the curbs were placed appropriate to the chosen width for the road. Large stones were placed between the curbs to serve as foundations, and on top of them smaller stone layers all mixed up with fine aggregates to fill the gaps. Finally, the surface layer, a mixture of gravel, sand, and clay, was added. Tipper carts moved along the already compacted layers to deposit the material for the next layer. After tipping out heaps of material, it had to be spread out with planks, watered from barrels, and finally, compacted with rollers. It was a continuous process until the last layer, the surface layer, was finished, which was composed of carefully selected materials of the highest quality. On its surface moved the traffic of carts and draft animals. The final geometry of the road had slightly sloping sides to allow rainwater to be drained outwards and away from the road. And a relevant fact recently discovered: about 20 meters from the road on both sides, ditches were placed to prevent access to the road from unauthorized vehicles. These ditches, the existence of which have only recently been discovered, also increased the visibilities of one's peripheral view, avoiding any surprise from wild animals, and they also made life difficult for possible highway robbers.
Whichever way you look at that, your brain will tell you that the long end is nearer to you. Now, it is nearer to you now, but now I'll put it back near my body. Now it's nearer to me, but it still looks as if it's nearer you, doesn't it? Because you're used to seeing things bigger when they are closer to you. Now, here's the spinning motor. It's simply a piece of cotton thread tied to this corner and tied to the other corner, and I've wound it around in my fingers so that when I let it go in a moment, it'll unwind, the thread will unwind, and you'll see the thing spinning. There we are. I'll hold it at the same level as your eyes and we'll let it go. Now you know that it's turning around in circles. In fact, if you look at it from above, you can see that it's turning around in a circle. But now your brain is doing something strange. It's telling you that it's not going around in a circle, but it's oscillating. In other words, it's turning part way, stopping, and then going back the other way. Now that's a strange effect, isn't it? But if you think that's strange, wait till I add something through the middle. What am I going to add? Well, I'm going to add a ballpoint pen. And to do that, I've placed a little piece of double-sided sticky tape on the ballpoint pen. You can use ordinary sticky tape if you like. I'll place it right through the center of the window and press it in place like that. Now this time, by fixing on the pen, you'll be able to see that the pen is going around in a circle and not going backwards and forwards. But what's your brain going to tell you about the window? Will your brain allow you to see the window going around in a circle with the pen? Or are you going to see something really strange? Well, have a look at that. That's unbelievable, isn't it? You can see the pen going around in a circle, but your brain is telling you that the window is going part way around and turning and going the other way. And yet in order to do that, the two things have to pass through one another, the pen and the window. You know it's not possible. You know it can't happen. And yet as you look at it, you see them going through one another every time they go around. An amazing illusion, the Ames window.
Although most of us have a soft spot in our hearts for vintage and veteran cars, it can't be denied that there's a certain smugness in our attitude when we compare some of these noisy and rather messy old contraptions with the smooth-running cars of today. But one old car that certainly defies the general description is the 1912 Baker, because this model was an electric brougham and noiseless. However, we are not so much concerned with the merits of the veteran car as with, on this occasion, its source of power, the sun. For this is the world's first solar car, powered by a 10,000 cell panel on the roof, brought over from the United States by scientist and pioneer in this sphere, Dr. Charles Escoffery, to illustrate the potential of solar energy. The silicon cells convert heat into electric power, which is then stored in the car's batteries, and with the present roof panel, it takes between 8 and 10 hours of sunlight to provide enough power for an hour's driving at 20 miles an hour. Solar cars, of course, are not yet commercially practicable, but what is important is that this vehicle uses the same type of solar cells already used in space satellites. This model train set is another illustration of their adaptability. Notice that a man's shadow falling across the cells, blocking out the sun, is enough to stop the train. It's a significant point that every day as much energy falls on the Earth from the sun as has been used in the whole history of our civilization. And remember, eventually, the Earth's natural resources for power, coal, oil, and uranium for atomic energy will be exhausted. Meanwhile, the scientists gain useful knowledge from gadgets like this walkie-talkie.
Unfortunately, in Britain, we have one big handicap: no sun.
Just what will this change mean to the Channel 2 viewers who will still be watching us in black and white?
Well, we think you'll see a big difference on black and white receivers. The new color cameras will give an improved monochrome picture, and all our new color sets here in the studio were designed with that in mind. Are you all set, Bob? Take it away in full spectrum color.
Well, Doug, first I'd like to say this, that I feel doubly honored to have been chosen to be the first one involved in our big change, because there are so many much more colorful characters around here than this reporter.